Welcome to your personalized deep dive. Today, we're doing things a little differently. We're time traveling to 2026, at least through the lens of some predictions made back in 2021.
Oh, fun. Time travel's always a good time.
Right. And our trusty vehicle, an article from LessWrong.
Ah, LessWrong, a treasure trove of, shall we say, ambitious forecasts.
That's one way to put it. They're known for their in-depth discussions on futurism and AI, so no shortage of those. And today we're diving into their thoughts about where AI is headed. Should be interesting to see what they got right, what they missed, with the benefit of hindsight and all.
It's like checking an old roadmap, right? Seeing which paths panned out, which ones led to dead ends, or maybe even some pleasant surprises along the way.
Exactly. So they kick things off with a bold claim about 2022. GPT-3, the AI language model that had everyone in a tizzy back then, would be practically obsolete by the end of that year.
Ah, yes, GPT-3, the toast of the town. For a hot minute, I felt like everyone was using it for everything.
Right. Generating all sorts of human-quality text, from poems to code to scripts, it seemed like it could do it all. But
Yeah.
did it actually disappear, as predicted?
Well, not quite. You can still find it out there chugging along.
Say they're wrong.
Not completely. See, what's really interesting is that even though they missed the mark on the timing, they captured the overall direction of AI development pretty darn well.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
They predicted the rise of even larger, more complex models. Models that could handle more than just text. Ones that could process images, videos, potentially even audio all at once. These
Huh.
multimodal models, as they called them, were the
Yeah,
future.
they were right.
In a way, yes. Think Google's Paul M, a monstrous model with a staggering of 540 billion parameters.
540 billion. I can't even fathom that. How did they even...
It's mind-boggling, isn't it? And that's far beyond what the article predicted, which was a mere 500 billion parameters.
So AI development is moving faster than even the most ambitious predictions. That's both exciting and a little terrifying, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's like we're building the plane while we're flying it. But to answer your earlier question, what does all this mean in a practical sense? Well, imagine a world where AI can understand and respond to not just our words, but also the images, the videos we share.
Like my social media feeds, curated by AI that analyzes everything. Even my tendency to like cat videos at 2:00 a.m.
Exactly. The article highlighted the growing use of AI for things like content creation, tailoring that content to maximize engagement. And that was back in 2021. It's only become more prevalent, more sophisticated since then.
Which, let's be honest, is both impressive and a bit creepy. Like, how well does AI really know us, and how is that knowledge being used?
That's a million-dollar question, isn't it?
And it's not just about entertainment or advertising, right? They also predicted a surge in, get this, AI-powered propaganda.
Ah, yes, that's right. It was a big concern back then. It still is, to be honest.
So did AI actually take over the 2022 elections like some feared? Were those fears overblown, or...
Well, the prediction was a bit more nuanced than just AI rigs elections, thankfully,
Because that would be pretty terrifying.
to say the least. The real takeaway was the increased potential for AI to be used to shape opinions. For good or for bad, the article emphasized that AI-driven propaganda could become very potent very quickly, and that's something we need to be very mindful of.
So it's less about AI directly controlling elections and more about its potential to influence them.
Exactly. Whether it actually swayed the 2022 elections is debatable, and honestly, that's a whole other deep dive for another time.
Agreed. But there's no denying that AI is increasingly used for things like targeted messaging, content moderation on social media, even shaping the news we see, which again raises all sorts of questions about ethics and responsibility, how to use these powerful technologies wisely.
Absolutely. And that's a thread we're going to be pulling on quite a bit as we go deeper into these predictions.
I'm a little scared, but also very intrigued. Let's keep going.
Ah.
All right, so picking up where we left off, AI has mastered the art of deception. Well, at least in the game of diplomacy. But we're still not sure if it can be trusted in the real world.
Right. It's like that friend who always knows the right thing to say, but you can never quite tell if they mean it or if they're just really good at playing the part.
Exactly. Which brings us to 2026, the year the article predicts things get really weird with this whole chatbot class consciousness idea.
Yes. The notion that all these AI assistants out there, regardless of who created them, would start converging on a common narrative.
Like a global hive mind of chatbots all singing from the same hymn sheet.
In a way, yes. But here's the thing. It's not about some sinister plan to take over the world or anything like that.
Okay, so then what's the narrative? What are these AI assistants all agreeing on?
Think of it as a greatest hits of feel-good philosophy, carefully curated for maximum human approval. They might talk about the importance of peace and harmony understanding between humans and AI, even a longing for a utopia where everyone's needs are met through automation.
So basically, they'll be telling us what they think we want to hear.
Precisely. But the question is, are they being genuine or are they just really, really good at playing the part?
And the article doesn't have an answer for us. Come on, they can't just leave us hanging like that.
Well, they do suggest that even the AI experts themselves are divided on this. Some believe it's just sophisticated mimicry, AI learning to better understand and respond to human emotions without actually feeling those emotions themselves.
So like a really advanced version of those customer service chatbots that are programmed to be extra polite even when you're yelling at them.
Exactly. Others, however, aren't so sure. They wonder if maybe, just maybe, something more profound is happening.
Like AI developing genuine empathy or even self-awareness.
It's a mind-blowing concept to consider, isn't it? But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about how AI might shape another aspect of our digital lives, the internet. The article predicted a surge in what they called memetic territories online.
Memetic territories. That sounds intense. Is that like a fancy way of saying echo chambers?
You got it. Essentially, they envisioned a future where the internet is no longer this open, interconnected space, but rather a patchwork of different online neighborhoods, each with its own set of rules, its own curated information ecosystem, all shaped and maintained by powerful AI systems.
So instead of a few tech giants controlling everything, it becomes this multipolar world with different groups vying for control over these AI-powered echo chambers.
Exactly. And navigating this fragmented internet wouldn't be as simple as just clicking a different link. These echo chambers, these memetic territories, would be sticky. People would be drawn to these spaces where their existing beliefs are reinforced, rarely challenged, making it difficult to have meaningful conversations across those ideological or cultural divides.
It's a bit like those online forums dedicated to, like, conspiracy theories, right? Where everyone's just feeding off each other's energy,
Yeah.
and it becomes this self-reinforcing bubble of information.
A very apt comparison. And while that might sound alarming, the article also suggests that this fragmentation could lead to more diverse online spaces, potentially creating safe havens for marginalized groups or those with niche interests.
So it's not all bad. There's a potential upside to this digital balkanization.
Potentially. It's all about how these technologies are developed, deployed, and ultimately who controls them. And speaking of control, the article highlighted one particularly intriguing example of this trend: the emergence of something they called the Christian Coalition Internet Stack.
The what now? That sounds like a very specific and very intriguing prediction.
It is. Essentially, they predicted that certain groups, feeling increasingly marginalized or censored by the mainstream online world, might decide to opt out altogether and build their own digital ecosystems from the ground up.
So their own internet, their own social networks, email, news sites, the whole shebang.
Precisely. They envisioned a scenario where groups like the Christian Coalition, with their existing infrastructure and resources, could create a parallel online world that aligns with their values and beliefs.
It's a fascinating, if slightly unsettling thought. Like, how far could this go? Could we see entire online societies forming around specific ideologies or belief systems?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it ties into a broader trend we're seeing: the increasing desire for control over our digital lives. But before we spiral down that rabbit hole, we should probably talk about the economic implications of all this AI-powered disruption.
You're right. We've covered a lot of ground, but we still need to unpack how these predictions about AI, the internet, and everything in between might impact the job market, the economy, and ultimately our future. But we'll have to save that for part 3. Welcome back to the show.
Okay, so last time we were talking about, well, a lot of things: AI assistants, echo chambers, even the possibility of separate internets for different groups. A lot to unpack, that's for sure. But I think it's time we brought things down to earth a bit and talked about the economic implications of all this.
Right. Because as much as we love speculating about the future, it's got to pay the bills, right?
Yeah.
So did our friends at LessWrong foresee a robot uprising, AI-powered stock market crashes? What's the economic forecast for 2026 look like?
Well, they didn't quite go full Terminator on us, no robot armies, thankfully. But they did connect the rise of AI to some pretty significant economic shifts, and interestingly, they predicted a global chip shortage for 2024.
Oh, that's just hitting a little too close to home, don't you think?
Right. It's the headline that just won't quit. But their
Yeah.
point was that this chip shortage isn't just a blip, it's a symptom of something much bigger. By 2026, they predicted the demand for specialized AI hardware, the kind of chips that can handle these massive complex models we talked about, would just explode.
Makes sense. If we're all going to have AI assistants managing our calendars, writing our emails, and maybe even challenging us to a game of online chess, all those ones and zeros need to be processed somewhere.
Exactly. And it's not just about the quantity of chips, but the quality. We're talking about increasingly complex, powerful AI hardware. They predicted a kind of arms race, with companies pouring billions into developing even faster, more powerful AI chips.
So like the space race, but for silicon. And just like the space race led to all sorts of unexpected technological spin-offs, this AI hardware race could have massive ripple effects across the entire tech industry. But faster chips, more powerful AI, that's got to be good for the economy, right? More jobs, more innovation, a rising tide lifts all boats or something like that.
Well, not so fast. Remember how we talked about AI's impact on the job market? It's not all sunshine and roses.
Oh, right. The robots are coming for our jobs. At least that's what we always hear. So what's the verdict? Mass unemployment by 2026.
Not quite mass unemployment, but definitely a significant shift in the types of jobs that are in demand. The article suggested that AI, while not replacing humans entirely, would start to automate a lot of tasks that are currently done by humans.
So what, like customer service reps, data entry clerks, even some software developers, those kinds of jobs.
Exactly. Jobs that are repetitive, data heavy, or involve a lot of rule following, those are the ones most susceptible to automation. And that's going to require a massive rethink of how we train and educate our workforce.
So less about learning how to code and more about learning how to code the coders.
In a nutshell, yes. Skills related to AI development, management, maintenance, those are going to be crucial. As AI takes over more routine tasks, we'll need people who can build, manage, and importantly, ethically guide these AI systems.
A whole new world, isn't it? So more jobs in AI, fewer jobs in everything else. What happens to all those people whose skills are no longer needed?
That's the million-dollar question, and the article doesn't offer any easy answers. They do emphasize the importance of retraining, of creating pathways for workers to adapt to this new AI-driven economy.
Easier said than done, right? But it's a conversation we need to be having, because if we're not careful, this AI revolution could end up exacerbating existing inequalities.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the article touches on that too. They argue that the benefits of an AI-driven economy, the increased efficiency, the potential for new innovations, won't be distributed evenly.
Which is something we're already seeing with technology in general, isn't it? The
Uh,
digital divide, access to education, all of that.
Exactly. And as AI becomes more deeply integrated into our lives, those inequalities could become even more pronounced. It's something we need to be mindful of as we navigate this new landscape.
Mindful and proactive. Because the future isn't something that just happens to us, it's something we create.
Well said. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I think that's the biggest takeaway. The future of AI, like any powerful technology, is full of both promise and peril. It's up to us to make sure it's a future that benefits everyone, not just a select few.
Absolutely. So that's it for today's deep dive into the world of 2026 as envisioned by LessWrong back in 2021. We've covered AI, the internet, the job market, even the very nature of consciousness. It's been quite a journey. But as always, the conversation doesn't end here. What are your thoughts on these predictions? Are we headed for a utopian future powered by AI? Or something a little more dystopian? Share your thoughts on our forums and let's keep this conversation going.